Every time the news cycle hints at stimulus checks or direct payments, millions of Americans perk up, because for many households, that extra support can make all the difference. And right now, there's growing talk in Washington about new payments that could be sent out faster than before, with priority given to people who rely on Social Security, SSI, SSDI, and VA benefits. The question on everyone's mind is simple: will stimulus checks really go out immediately, and what does that mean for you? To answer that, let's look at what's different this time. In the past, stimulus payments took weeks, or even months, to reach people who needed them most. Some got their money quickly through direct deposit, while others were left waiting for mailed checks or prepaid cards. That delay created frustration and uncertainty, especially for seniors and disabled Americans who depend on consistent monthly benefits. But now, with updated systems and new legislative pressure, the government has the tools to push payments out faster. That means if the next stimulus bill is passed, beneficiaries tied to SSA, SSI, SSDI, and VA could be at the front of the line to receive funds directly into their accounts without long waits. But here's the critical detail: this isn't about random speculation or internet rumors. The push for immediate stimulus distribution is connected to real conversations in Congress about economic relief, inflation, and how to protect vulnerable Americans from rising costs. Food prices, rent, gas, and especially healthcare expenses continue to put pressure on people living on fixed incomes. That's why lawmakers are focusing specifically on seniors, veterans, and individuals with disabilities as groups most in need of quick relief. So if you're wondering whether you might see another check soon, and more importantly, whether it could arrive faster than ever before, you're in the right place. In this video, we're going to break down exactly what's being discussed in Washington, how the payment systems are prepared to handle immediate distribution, and what it means for you if you depend on Social Security, SSI, SSDI, or VA benefits. By the end, you'll know the real facts, not rumors, and be able to plan with confidence. When we talk about stimulus checks, it's easy to think back to the last few years when direct payments were sent out to millions of Americans. Those checks provided a crucial lifeline during uncertain times, and for many seniors, veterans, and disabled individuals, they were more than just extra money. They were the difference between covering the basics or falling short. But as we move into the current discussions in 2025, the situation looks a little different. The economy has shifted, inflation has taken a toll, and lawmakers are under increasing pressure to deliver targeted relief to those who need it most. That's why this conversation about new stimulus checks going out immediately is so important. It's not just about politics. It's about survival, dignity, and making sure people who rely on fixed benefits are not left behind. In previous rounds of stimulus, one of the biggest challenges was the speed of distribution. People on Social Security, SSI, SSDI, and VA benefits often found themselves at the mercy of bureaucratic delays. Some got their money quickly because their direct deposit information was already on file with the IRS or Social Security Administration, while others had to wait for paper checks to arrive in the mail. That uneven process created confusion and frustration, especially for those who had no cushion to fall back on. This time, however, government agencies have had years to update their systems and coordinate better. What used to take weeks or months can now, in many cases, be processed in days. So when lawmakers say payments could go out immediately, they're talking about using existing infrastructure that's far more efficient than it was during the first stimulus rollout. But why is there such a strong push for immediate distribution? The answer lies in the current realities of daily life for millions of Americans. Food prices are still elevated, healthcare expenses keep rising, and many seniors are feeling squeezed by housing costs that show no signs of slowing down. Veterans face unique challenges, from the costs of medical treatments to everyday bills, and disabled individuals often live on the tightest margins of all. For these groups, waiting weeks for relief is not just inconvenient, it can mean making heartbreaking choices between paying for prescriptions, keeping the lights on, or putting meals on the table. Lawmakers know that speed matters, and that's why the idea of near-instant payments has gained traction. Now, let's look at how this would actually work in practice. If a stimulus bill is passed, the Department of Treasury, working with the IRS and agencies like the SSA and VA, would begin pushing funds directly into accounts already connected to benefit payments. That means if you receive your Social Security or VA benefits via direct deposit, you're likely to see your stimulus payment arrive just as quickly. For those who receive benefits on Direct Express cards, funds could be loaded there as well. The goal is to eliminate as much delay as possible by leveraging the systems already in place. Of course, there may still be some exceptions for people whose banking details are outdated or who rely on paper checks, but the government has made significant strides in minimizing those cases compared to the past. It's also important to talk about eligibility. In past stimulus programs, there was confusion about who qualified, how income limits were set, and whether dependents or spouses were included. For 2025, lawmakers are focused on creating clearer guidelines, especially for people on fixed benefits. The idea is to make sure no senior, disabled person, or veteran is left wondering whether they count. The push is toward universal inclusion for those already tied to SSA, SSI, SSDI, or VA systems, since these groups are widely recognized as vulnerable to economic pressures. While the exact income thresholds and amounts are still being discussed, the central idea is that if you're already receiving one of these benefits, you should expect to be part of the new wave of payments. There's also an important distinction to make between rumor and reality. Online, you may see people claiming checks are already being mailed or that specific amounts have been guaranteed. But the truth is, until a bill is passed and signed into law, nothing is final. What is real, however, is the ongoing discussion in Congress and the bipartisan recognition that relief is necessary. That recognition is a powerful signal that help is on the way. But as always, the details matter, and the only sources you should trust are official government announcements and agencies like the SSA, IRS, and VA. Another part of this discussion that deserves attention is the question of funding. Critics often argue that sending out more stimulus checks will add to the national debt or fuel inflation. Supporters counter that targeted relief, especially to fixed-income Americans, doesn't have the same inflationary effect as broad, untargeted spending. After all, seniors and disabled individuals aren't using these payments to splurge on luxury goods, they're using them to cover essentials. That distinction makes a big difference in how economists view the impact. And in many cases, putting money into the hands of people who will spend it immediately on necessities is exactly what helps local economies stabilize. Let's bring this down to a real-world example. Imagine a retiree who receives $1,600 a month from Social Security. After paying rent, utilities, and a modest grocery bill, there's barely anything left. Now imagine that person receives a stimulus payment of $1,200, and instead of waiting weeks, it lands in their account within days of the bill being signed. Suddenly, there's room to breathe. They can refill prescriptions without juggling bills, stock up on groceries instead of stretching meals, and maybe even set aside a little cushion for emergencies. That kind of relief isn't abstract. It's immediate, tangible, and deeply human. The same is true for a veteran relying on disability benefits or a disabled worker living on SSDI. The numbers may vary, but the story is the same. Stimulus checks, delivered quickly, can prevent hardship from turning into crisis. And because these payments would be tied to systems that already handle millions of transactions every month, there's no reason for the long delays of the past. That's why this proposal is more than just another round of political talk. It's about harnessing the efficiency of modern systems to deliver relief when it's actually needed. Now, you might be wondering, when exactly could all of this happen? That depends on how quickly Congress moves. Stimulus bills require debate, negotiation, and votes in both the House and the Senate before they can be signed into law. While that process can sometimes drag on, the urgency around inflation and the rising cost of living has added momentum. Lawmakers know that dragging their feet could mean millions of Americans suffering unnecessarily. So while no one can promise exact dates yet, the commitment to fast-track payments once the bill is signed is stronger than ever. It's also worth pointing out that immediate stimulus distribution isn't just about this one bill. It's about setting a precedent for the future. If the government proves it can deliver relief quickly and efficiently, it builds trust. It means that the next time a crisis hits, whether it's economic, natural disaster, or something else, the systems are already in place to respond. For seniors, veterans, and disabled individuals, that reliability can be a source of peace of mind, knowing that support won't be held up by endless red tape. Of course, as with anything tied to government programs, patience is required. Even with the promise of faster payments, there will always be exceptions, technical issues, or unique cases that take longer to resolve. But the overall picture is far more optimistic than it was in the early days of stimulus payments. The infrastructure has improved, the lessons have been learned, and the willpower to deliver quickly is stronger than ever. At the end of the day, this entire conversation circles back to one simple truth: people need help now, not weeks from now. Stimulus checks, when distributed immediately, can provide that help in the most direct way possible. For seniors struggling with fixed incomes, veterans balancing medical expenses, and disabled individuals fighting to stay afloat, these payments represent more than dollars. They represent stability, dignity, and the reassurance that the system hasn't forgotten them. That's why the push for immediate stimulus distribution is resonating so strongly across the country. So as this bill moves through Congress and the details are finalized, stay informed, stay patient, and remember that the focus this time is squarely on speed and inclusion. If you're part of SSA, SSI, SSDI, or VA, the odds are in your favor that when relief comes, it will come quickly. And that's a change worth paying attention to.